Hello and welcome to Philosophy 101, an introduction to philosophy. My name is Stephen Everett and I will be your instructor for this course. This is a video for everyone in the class, for those who may have taken classes, online classes before inside this D2L interface that we see on the screen, as well as for those who have never taken an online class using D2L or any other content management software like this. Either way, it's a video for everyone in the course. The first thing to mention is that this class is the product of a full rebuild of a class that I've taught for about 10 years. And I did not know that I would need to rebuild it at the beginning of the full semester in August. And so what you're seeing in this class is, which we will do for the next 7 or so weeks, is what has been able to be achieved at this point, but the class will be built out much further in the future. And that's just the nature of things. It's like I didn't know that I would need to do this, but sometimes that just happens with your jobs where all of a sudden you have a new task that was unexpected. In this case, it was rebuilding this particular class from what it has been for the previous 10 years. Which is fine. There's no problem with that. But the only thing to know is that we're only going up to a certain point by the end of this semester. But in future versions of this class and in multiple semesters down the road, it will expand and cover more area of the history of philosophy. That's just something to note at the very beginning. But that being said, we can get started. The first thing to notice is there's an updates window. This is your home page. When you log into the class, you'll always land on this page. And then there is an updates thing. What shows up in this is notifications that you have a certain number of unread discussion posts or that you have a quiz that needs to be done. What I would encourage people to do is it shows up in the form of links, like things you can click on. Don't click on them. Just use this as a way to say, hey, okay, I have some things I need to do. And then go find those things like the discussion and the quizzes using the content or assignments tabs up here. And we'll talk about how those work in this video. The reason for that is that sometimes updates in D2L do not distinguish between classes. So if you're taking any other classes at the college, and your other teachers are using D2L with those classes, then it may tell you have a quiz to do in this updates window. You think it's for this class, your Philosophy 101 class, but it could be for another class that you're taking. The only time that happens is inside this updates window. And so you wouldn't want to click on the quiz link, think you're about to take a quiz for this class, but end up in one of your other classes and not notice it, start the quiz and be like, whoa, I'm not prepared for this at all. So the easiest way to avoid that potential confusion is to just see what happens in the updates window and say, okay, I have those things to do, but then go look for them using content and assignments. It just solves a problem for you before you encounter it. Just use this as a helpful reference, whatever the links as they appear here, but not as the definitive thing of, okay, yeah, I need to click on that to go to it, because you don't. There's other ways to get to the assignments. There's also the calendar over here on the right-hand side of the screen. The D2L calendar can be helpful, but it does not provide you with maybe as much information as you would want in order to know what's happening or what is going to happen throughout the entire semester, when everything opens up, when you can start interacting with it and completing it. In order to see all those dates, like the full class, what one can do is they go over to this side of the screen and there's a document here called the course schedule. This is what it looks like. Like if you click this link, what will come up is a document that looks like this. And this lays out the entire course from where we are now through the first week all the way through the 7th week through to the final exam. The entire course condensed into 2 pages that's easy to to print out, and you could do this and have this the whole semester, and you can use it to schedule around your work or other classes. so that you know when things are happening in this class. The first thing we can look is it starts with the dates, and it's laid out from left to right. This is the first few days we're in the class. By the time you're watching this video, there is no discussion in these first 3 or so days. The only things to read and watch is the syllabus of course schedule, this course information video, which you're watching this video right now. You're doing exactly what you need to do. Everything begins with this video, and we'll talk about the syllabus. We're looking at the course schedule right now, and so by the end of this video, after you do a little reading, you'll be done for these first few days. Besides this attendance verification activity that's due by the end of this, by the midnight 10/19. The first week of the class, when we start off, when we're into the philosophy stuff, begins here on the 20th. This is week 1. It's introductory. This week is focused on, this first week will be focused on what is philosophy. Just becoming familiar with the field. Like, what is this discipline, this academic discipline, this academic field, however one wants to refer to it. We go into a lot of detail about that, because it's important to kind of understand what is philosophy. A lot of people don't know. By the end of week 1, you'll have a much better idea of it. And what happens during week 1 is you'll have a discussion question. This is the title, the link name that you will look for inside the class during week 1. It also gives you the unlock and lock times. This is the dates and the times that you're able to interact with and complete assignments and everything associated with week 1 on this horizontal row. And what you'll see is like readings and videos. That's the assigned lecture material, the assigned reading for that week. There is a lecture video and a handout for week 1. Anything marked with an SE, that's my initials. That stuff is always associated with the lecture material, what you would be receiving were we in a physical classroom face-to-face. Given this is a 100% online class, we do this through video and handouts. And then there is also some voluntary reading. And then there is a discussion and a quiz. That is the pattern that plays out repeatedly throughout the semester, and we can notice that right now. Is that every week there's a discussion and there's a quiz, except there's not a quiz during week 4 when the midterm exam's in play. But all the other weeks, there's a discussion, there's a quiz. There's also an argumentative essay assignment that's due by the last day of the semester. You can complete it before then. That's fine. We'll talk more about it in this video. But it's due by the end of the semester, as well as the final exam. And there's also these extra credit opportunities. But what else goes on during the weeks? Well, each week you have a discussion. What you end up doing is you make an initial post to the discussion around the middle of the week. And then by the end of the week, you reply to at least post made by at least 3 other people in the class. We'll talk more about that too in this video. But then by the end of each week, you're doing a quiz, except, like I said, week 4 when the midterm's in play. But it gives you all the assigned readings, and you can just start on the left-hand side each week, look at the dates, you can see the topics, and then you can see the discussion prompt. There's a lot more to discussions than just this little prompt, but this gives you an idea of what to look for when you're trying to find the weekly discussions, your assigned readings and videos, as well as your assignments for each week. So this is the entire class laid out in 2 pages. And pretty straightforward. And once you do a week or 2 of it, it just becomes a pattern. You'll know what to do. The fall break is also noted here so that you know when we get time off. So that's the course schedule. I would encourage you to look through it after the video, compare it with the actual class while you're becoming familiar with the class. The next thing, we'll go back to the home page. The last thing on the homepage, we've talked about the updates, talked about the calendar. There's the news feed. I do update this news feed throughout the semester. I give reminders and notifications of anything that's relevant to everybody in the class. For example, I'll let people know when the midterm's coming up, let you know when extra credit is coming up, all those kind of things show up in the news feed. And it's like a social media news feed. The most recent post is at the top, the older posts are underneath. So given this is week 1, we got multiple posts. Let's just look through them real quick. We have the name of the class, my name. We have the how to get started, watch this video, what you're doing. So you're perfectly on task. You're doing exactly what you need to be doing by watching this video. Then it says to read the syllabus and the course schedule. Well, we just saw the course schedule. And you'll want to look at that and compare it with the class after this video. Also, there's a syllabus. We will go through it, a little bit of it, at the end of this video. But there's also these other documents that if you've taken other classes at the college, you may be more familiar with these two documents. The reality is the information contained in these two documents is the same as the information in the course schedule and the syllabus. The reason these things are separate like this is because after teaching this class for well over 10 years, that I found that students prefer this format and layout. Just historically, students tend to prefer this. That's why I include it every semester. But this is the more standard format that you'll see in a lot of your other classes. It's fine. If you like this way of laying out the information, by all means, you can use these two documents. You can run the entire class, be perfectly fine. But in this video, we're going to go through these two documents. The information as it relates to how things operate in the class, what you need to be doing, how assignments work, it's the same. So what I encourage people to do, we'll look through these two documents, then look through these, just pick a set and stick with it the rest of the semester. That's all you have to do. Either pick these two and then go through the class, pick these two, go through the class. Either way is fine. Either set will work. Just whichever of the two you prefer. There's also this free PDF of this textbook. This was created by another faculty member at the college. We use some pieces of it this semester. As this class is built out more in future semesters, more of this textbook will be used. We use just a little bit of it this semester, but it's there. You get an entire textbook. You don't have to pay anything for it. I mean, it's helpful, and you can keep it and save it, and you can go even further in philosophy than we will in this semester. There's many interesting topics. It's a different way of presenting the material. There's nothing wrong with that. It's fine. It's something you can have. And we will use some pages out of it a few weeks during the semester. So if you are, so you have access to it. There's also, you don't have to buy any book or anything for the class. Everything you need's right here. It's also contained in the actual class modules. I mean, we just use a little bit of this. The majority is provided inside the weekly modules, which we'll see in a little while. The next thing, this is a 100% online class. That means that our primary means of communicating is through email initially. So it's important to know how to email me. You got to know how to email me and know that your message or your email is going to get to me. So the first thing to do is whenever you get ready to email me, just get out of D2L. Get out of this interface. And then go into your HGTC email, which is a version of Outlook, Microsoft. It works. It's what I use. But you're welcome to use if you have an external email account, Gmail, another kind of Outlook account, Yahoo, whatever. Doesn't matter. As long as the email address will work throughout the semester, it's fine. But get out of D2L, go into your email, type in my address, make sure you get the address and and the spelling and the periods and all that right in it. And then send me your email. I will receive your email, assuming you send it, to that address. This is the only address I work with. I check. It's the main address. It's the way to get to me. And I check it every day, basically. Sometimes something comes up on my end and it may be it may take 2 days. But typically within 12 hours, if you send me an email, it's a real good chance I'm going to reply to you within 12 hours. That means if you send it to me at 8 in the morning, there's a good chance you may receive a reply by 8 that same night. But give me up to 48 hours, which is 2 days. And if you have not received a reply from me in 2 days, check my address. Make sure you send it to the right one and then resend it. Say, hey, I sent this email. I don't know if you received it. Here it is again. But give me 48 hours and I will absolutely respond to any email I receive. Typically well ahead of 48 hours. And definitely don't try to email me. There's a way to try to send email inside this D2L interface. You don't want to do that. That email is not reliable. It may never reach me, but this will always get to me if you type it in right. Then speaking of which, we can talk about this attendance verification activity. That's all that's due these first few days of the class, like the 17th through the 19th, the next 3 today, by the time you're watching this video. And then you got like Thursday, Friday, Saturday. By Saturday at midnight, you definitely need to send me an email. Just do like it describes there. Send me an email. Hey, I'm in your intro to philosophy class. Or hey, I'm in your intro class. Doesn't have to be sophisticated. It's fine. Just send it to me. Let me know you're in the class. The reason for this is I'm able to use this email to verify your attendance with the registrar that yes, indeed, this person attended. They're in the class. They're intending to take the class, and then you're in. If I do not receive this email in these first few days, I'm required by the college to withdraw you from the class. So if you intend to be in the class, you definitely want to send me this email, and I will reply to it so that you know I received it. And but as long as I get it by midnight Saturday, this upcoming Saturday, that's fine. I mean, it's a perfect thing to do after you watch this video. Just get out of D2L, send me an email. Hey, I'm in your intro class. You're done. That's all. That's the only assignment for these first 3 days. And so I use this to verify your attendance just these first 3 days. After that, once we start the official week 1 on the 20th, your attendance is tracked via you completing assignments. You do the discussions, do the quizzes, you're marked as attending. That's the way attendance works. And so it's just, but I do need to receive this email as soon as you can get it to me in the next day or so. The last thing is identity verification. This is a school policy. This is not my policy, but the school would like everybody to upload a picture of their self with a student or a photo ID. It can be any kind of photo ID. And to upload it, you can click on this link, this attendance verification. I'll also show you another way to get to this later in the video, but you can click on this link. It's just a selfie holding your ID. You set a picture of yourself with a photo ID. And once you click on this, it'll walk you through the process of selecting the file and putting it in the class. It never leaves this class. It's only used for this one thing. And at the end of the semester, it's done. So that's identity verification. But the school does want, this is like the end of next week to have this done. Now, where do we go from here? Well, we'll go up to these tabs at the top. I have more tabs on my screen. This is, seeing the class through the way I see it. And that you won't have these 2 tabs on the end, but you will have tools. And so you can click the tools tab and you'll see attendance and grades. These are the 2 tabs. Like all I did is I just clicked the drop down arrow, and not that. You have attendance and grades, and you can check your attendance every week. You can check your grades. The way it works with grades is as soon as you do a quiz or an exam, those are instantly graded. You'll know what you made on it. It'll tell you how many you missed. It'll give you a fraction, showing you the percentage of how many questions versus how many you got right. And the grades for quizzes and exams, they're instant. You see that immediately. Discussions, that takes a few days. That what happens is at the end of every week, I always read all the way through all the discussion posts again. I read through them during the week too, but at the end, I look through them all again, and then I post grades. This semester, since I'm building this stuff kind of on the fly, it takes me a little longer to update grades. But the goal is always to have, and once you're over with, say, week one, by Wednesday or Thursday of week two, you should see your discussion grades. And at that moment, when I update discussion grades, I do that manually. Then I update your attendance. So grades are always going to be, delayed for discussion showing up. But quizzes, you'll know immediately. But typically by Wednesday, Thursday of the following week. So when you finish one week at midnight on a Saturday, by that next Wednesday, Thursday, you should be able to check your grades and see discussions to see your discussion grade for the week before and attendance. That's the way grades work. These other tabs, you can look through them. I mean, we're not using any of them. You're welcome to click on them, see what it shows you. But the main thing that you will use throughout the semester is attendance and grades, those two tabs. The next thing is communications. You can see the entire news feed here. Like if some of these posts you want to recall them back up, you can always click news and see every news post that's been made throughout the semester. That's convenient sometimes. This is how you don't email me. You don't do this to send me an email. This is D2L email. It's not reliable. Just forget you've even seen it. But the news tab can be helpful. There's also a way, like normal social media feeds, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the screen under this news feed, it'll say show old posts or previous posts. So you'll be able to see all the news feed stuff from the beginning, from this day forward, if you so desire, you need to. The next two tabs, these are the main tabs that you use throughout the semester. The assignments tab. So what is under it? Well, we use these top three: discussions, Dropbox, quizzes. So let's look at, say, quizzes first. What happens if we click on that? Let's see what happens. D2L is a little slow today. So let's see. Where does it take us? Yep, took us where I thought it would. So we go assignments, quizzes, and what you'll be able to see is all the quizzes throughout the whole semester. They're listed as future quizzes right now because I'm recording this video before the class opens. But once the class opens, this will be future quizzes until this date. And then this week one quiz at midnight the 19th will hop up and it'll be in another shaded off area and it'll say current quiz. That's one way you can always know throughout the semester. If you're wondering what week is it, the easiest thing to do when you log into the class and you're like, what week are we on? All you got to do is go assignments, quizzes, and then the current quiz will be setting in its own little separated thing. And if you look at the number, quiz 1, week 1 quiz, week 2 quiz, whatever is the current quiz, that's the week we're in. These days that we're in right now, like the 17th through the 19th, these are just a kind of limbo days to get you familiar with the syllabus and how the class works. But as soon as we get to this, we're in week 1 and we're starting. It all kicks off then. But there's quizzes, like I said, for every week except the midterm week. And what happens when this available date occurs, this quiz link goes into the current quizzes and you'll be able to click on it and complete it. And then it'll stay current until this date and time, and then it'll go all the way to the bottom. It'll be in past quizzes, and you'll no longer be able to click on it to interact with it anymore. So that's how it works. This is the same as in the course schedule, the unlock and the lock times. That's the available and the until. That's what that means in the course schedule. And then we can go on down, just so you can see, they're all the way through, all the way to the final exam. So when these days and times occur, these quizzes and exam open, and then you have until this date to complete them. That's one way to get to quizzes. There's another way, this is one way, is through assignments and then quizzes. Well, what's the next thing? Well, let's look at Dropbox. What's under there? Click the tab. All I did is assignments and Dropbox. And then you can go down. And there is the identity verification that we talked about. This is where you take that self picture with photo ID. You upload it to here. This is just another way to get to it. And then there's argumentative essay. We'll talk more about that, but this is due at the last day of the semester. You can do it anytime after week 2, After you've done a discussion or two, it's worth, given that this is an abbreviated, a 7-week semester, to go ahead and start thinking about, okay, which of these discussions do I want to do this essay on? And then you can do it, and we'll talk more about it. But this is how you can find it. Like when it comes time to turn in your argumentative essay, you have your essay on your computer. You just click here, and it'll walk you through the process of uploading the file. So that's what's under Dropbox. And it's just identity verification. It's the two places where you're uploading files to the class, essentially. That's what Dropbox is. You're able to take a file from your machine and click on this and upload it. The same applies here. That's all that the notion of Dropbox is. You're able to drop off an assignment, upload a file. Then there's discussions. So let's see what that looks like. Yep, so I just clicked Assignments Discussions. And then this gives every single discussion thing. It's essentially, if you click on these things, you can start a new thread, you can make a post. Whatever you post can be seen by everybody in the class. Everybody can read it and reply to it. That's the way these things work. So this any questions goes along with something over in content, but it has to do with questions about, something described in this video, in the syllabus, the course schedule. Essentially, you could post it here. It would be helpful if it's 3 in the morning and someone else is in the class and they may know the answer to a question you have about how to find something. You could post your question. If they're feeling kind, they notice your question, they know the answer, then they might be able to answer it even quicker than I would. Then I would see it. But the simplest thing, just send it to me through email. And like I said, normally within 12 hours, you'll receive a reply. Self-introduction, you can do this if you want to. It's voluntary. Sometimes people do, sometimes no one does. It's fine. Either way, it's just an option if you want to do it. Now, these are the actual weekly stuff, like the week 1 discussion. And the way discussions work is that you read the lecture material, watch the video if there is one for it that week. You work through the material in the front end of the week. Then by the midpoint in each week, by around Wednesday, the time that's posted as a due date is 7 p.m. each Wednesday. And it says it right here. And all it means by initial post is that you answer this question and provide your reasons for your answer. That's it. And that's all there is to make an initial post. You post an answer and your reasons for that answer. And you'll learn more about reasons and stuff during the lecture material for week 1. So I won't go into it right now. But there's a description, these potentially helpful comments. It's always worth reading those. That gives you some idea of what the question's asking. What is it that, how would you formulate your post for that kind of question? And there's always something with helpful comments. And so how do you do discussions though? Well, when you're ready to make an initial post around the midpoint in the week, you just click the link. You see it underlines it. You click on it. There's a button that shows up. It'll say start a new thread or make a new post. You click on that button and a text box appears that you can type in. What some people do is they type their post in, say, Word or some other word processing program. Then they copy it, they paste it in rather than having to type it into the small text box. Some people don't have any problem. They just type it directly in, a stream of consciousness in the text box. Either way works. There's no problem with it. Whatever way, long as it's your work. Doesn't matter. How you decide to make your post is, if you type it in something else and then paste it into the text box, or you just type it in the text box. Either's fine. But the key to it is that every week you want to kind of look to the lecture material and stuff, and then around Wednesday, even if it goes into Thursday, that's okay. The Wednesday at 7 p.m., it's just the goal. And so if it takes you to Wednesday at midnight, maybe you have your job, you don't get off till 8 o'clock or something, that's fine. It's just the goal is to always get it in around Wednesdays, Thursdays. The reason for that is it gives everybody the maximum amount of time to be able to read your post and reply to it if they so choose. Because the second part of the discussion assignment is you post your answer to the question, your reasons, and then after you do that, that lets you see what everybody else has posted. Until you make that initial post, you can't see what anybody else has posted. But after you have, you'll be able to see their post, read their post. The second part of weekly discussions is you go in, you read people's posts, and you make replies to at least 3 people. And the way you do that is when you click on their post to read it, there'll be a reply button. If you click on that reply button, a text box appears, and then you're able to type in your post. It'll take you some people a week or two to become familiar with how that works. That's fine. I mean, that's expected. You're not expected to be, totally know how to do everything, day one in a new class. That's not the expectation. The expectation is you try to figure it out and ask me questions if you have them, and I'll help you. But the idea is you make your initial post around the middle of the week, Wednesday, 7 p.m. to midnight. Even if it's into Thursday a little bit, that's fine. Make your initial post. That lets you see what other people have posted at that point. I mean, you can make this before Wednesdays. If you've read the lecture material, watched the videos, and you're ready to go, Monday, it's fine. You make it. If other people have done the same, in principle, if 5 or 6 other people have done it, you could click on their stuff, read it, make your 3 replies. You can be done, basically, at the beginning of the week with all the assignments. Besides the quiz, you'll still have to take it, but you can do it in the front end of the week if you're ready to do it too. It's just you do it within the 7-day span that you have. The only thing is you need to get that initial post in there around the middle of the week, because you can't see what anybody else is posting until you do. And you want to get started with it and start thinking about it. And it just keeps you a little bit ahead, especially in a shorter course like this, a shorter semester course. And then the peer replies, you reply to posts made by 3 people. Yeah, and what do you do in a peer reply? Well, you give the person helpful feedback. If you agree with their reasoning, let them know. What do you agree? What did they do right? If you disagree, that's fine. It's philosophy. Disagreements is going to happen. Not everybody's going to agree with everything other people say. That's fine. But you just try to give people feedback that you yourself would like to receive. Tell them what worked, or if you think something didn't work, let them know. If you have examples to help make their argumentation even stronger, or if you have counter examples, that you're like, yeah, well, what about this example? How would you reply to that? It's fine. You're just providing someone with feedback to help them be able to read that feedback and maybe relook at what they did. That you're not committed if you answer the question one way and then you receive a lot of peer feedback, and by the end of the week you think something totally different. That's fine. That's part of philosophy, as you'll learn in week 1. It's a living field. I mean, we don't expect that everybody has the final best answer the very first time you do it. Now, you may never find the best answer to certain questions. But then week 2 works exactly the same. Week 3, 4, 5, once you do it the first week, the second week, you'll understand how to do it. But that's discussions, and that's kind of how they work. Just to, summarize that, all that you do is when it's around the middle of the week, you've watched the lecture material, you're ready to do your discussions, just click on the link, start a new thread, type your answer into the text box, post it. There'll be a button that says post or add it to the board, whatever. Just click on it and then it'll show up. It may take it a little while to show up. That's the thing to keep in mind. It may not instantly appear. Normally it does, but sometimes D2L is a little slow. It happens. The servers, there's a lot of people on it sometimes taking classes. So if it takes a little while for your post to appear, that's fine. Don't worry about it. It will show up. If you made it successfully and D2L registered it, your post will be there. If it does not show up, though, and you did it, let me know, and we'll try to chase it down. We'll figure out what happened. If anything else, you can always repost, but give it time. Give it an hour or so if you don't see it, and then come back and check on it, and that's the way to think about it. I mean, the technology's good. It works. I've worked with a lot of years, but sometimes it does like any piece of software, any sophisticated piece of software, that sometimes things mess up. And if that's the case, we'll chase it down, we'll figure it out. There's no technical problem that we can't resolve. That's one thing to keep in mind. But the online classes have come a long way from where they were. I took some of the very first ones when I was an undergrad, and things have changed tremendously since then. They're better than than initially they were. The technology is better. So the last tab is content. So what's going on in content? Well, when you click content, if you have not clicked on anything else and hadn't already been wandering around in here, this is the first thing that you'll encounter. This is the sort of overview of the class. You can read that. But how do you find the lecture material? How do you find all the things? That's the key question. So let's go back to the home page. You can always click Course Home. That'll take you back to where we started. And then you can go Content. Just click the Content tab. It's going to always show wherever you last were on this right-hand side. Sometimes that can be confusing. In order to avoid that, just when you click Content tab, just immediately start looking to the left side of the screen. That's what's relevant to you. This is how you navigate D2L. You don't really navigate it in the middle of the screen. You're doing it on the left side. And so you look to the left side, scroll down, and what you'll see is there's 3 of these things, these modules. Module is just a fancy word for folder. That it's just like a folder, that you see on your desktop, whether it's a Macintosh, whether it's Windows machine, Linux, and pretty much all of them anymore have folders, some version of folders. Unless you tell it you don't want them, it's gonna, you'll be able to make folders. Well, that's all these are. There are 3 folders. And what you do when you click on them, there's things inside of them. Simple enough. So let's look at the last thing first, this extra credit. The way it works is when you click on one of these things, it darkens to let you know, yep, you've clicked on it. And then if you notice what happened on the right-hand side of the screen is what's inside that folder is open. Now it's in the middle of the screen. So all that you did was just click where you wanted. And you only have 3 options initially, is these 3. We clicked on extra credit, and that's what's here in the middle. And it tells you there's 2 extra credit opportunities this semester. They're both due by the last day of the class. But you can do them anytime. I would encourage people, I would encourage you to do them before the very end if you can. Because there's no reason to wait for them, and you can go ahead and have those extra points. If you want this is voluntary. You do not have to do these things. But if you want to do them, they're a good way to amass extra points to have. If you lose some points on quizzes or exams or discussions, this will add back to your grade by the end of the semester. And this is added. These points are added after you've done everything. And so you can read through these things, what they are. I'm not going to read through them, in this video. But once you look through this first week, by the end of the first week, you could do this. You could easily do this after week 1, but it's open till the last day of the semester. After the first few weeks, and after you look to the future in the class, once you get familiar, look at the course schedule and say, well, we're not going to cover certain things. Go and do internet search. Find something interesting that's not described in this class. You can describe it. You can follow these directions, and you can post, and you can get extra credit points for doing so. But that's extra credit. I mean, it's voluntary. You don't have to do it, but it's there if you would like to. The next thing, we're going to hop over Course Contents module. We're going to go to the Getting Started module. And notice things changed drastically when I clicked on that. See, it expanded. You have more tabs than you did to begin with. Don't let that bother you. If you don't want those tabs, all you got to do is click Table of Contents. So here, just so everybody can see it, what has happened is this is the top folder, and these are folders within that folder. That's all you're seeing is folders within folders. And that makes a difference when we get here, because this one will expand greatly. But there's just 3 subfolders in this larger folder. It says this is the getting started stuff, course information, and that's what it says right here. So you know that that's what you're in. And then you can look through it and it says there's course information. It's course information. Well, D2L how-tos. So if this works the way one suspects it does, if I scroll down far enough, I should come across this folder and then even further this folder. Well, here's course information, so let's test it just to make sure that it does indeed. Yep, there's D2L how-tos where we would want it to be, and then there's student services where it's supposed to be. So that's what these tabs are doing. Is it's just is it say that you don't need course information, you want student services, and you don't want to scroll down, you can just click that and get there. Now this is just a more rapid way instead of having to scroll and see everything. That's all those extra tabs are doing over there. But inside this, so the course information, what is going on in here? Well, we have the course information video, the video you're watching. The syllabus, another link to it, another link to the course schedule. You have another link to the textbook later in the semester. If you're like, whoa, where's the textbook? You see some page numbers from it that you need to read. It's not hiding. It's just in the Getting Started Course Information module. You receive it this very first week, so you have it. There's Net Etiquette. If this is your first online class, you've never posted in an academic professional environment, done discussions like this, it's worth your while to check this Net Etiquette webpage. It'll talk you through, like you don't make your discussion post in all capital letters. Why? Because it's harder for people to read. You just do it normal, upper, lowercase. You write in complete sentences. You're not using a bunch of abbreviations like maybe you would do in a text message. You can't assume that other people will know what the abbreviations mean. Net Etiquette goes through all that. It's helpful. It's worth checking out. Even if you've done online classes before and you've never seen this, it's worth knowing about. And you'll check that out these first few days. The distance learning policies, this applies to everybody in the class. Anytime you're taking an online class, a fully online class, it counts as distance learning. It's just like any other class of the college, but these policies do apply. There's that any questions that we saw over there in discussion. Those are about these things, but you can always email me. And then also there's this instructional package course information sheet that we mentioned earlier that's in the news feed, the alternative to using the syllabus course schedule documents. And note, it even looks like a folder, because that's what this stuff is. It's just folders. The next thing is there's links. If this is your first time taking a class inside D2L, it's worth the 30-40 minutes to take that virtual tour. Just watch a video. There's a tip sheet. This is generic. Like what we're doing right now, going through this particular class, is exactly the same thing this video does, except this does it for any class you would ever take. So if you're thinking about taking other online classes using this D2L interface, it's worth knowing how D2L itself, how the layouts and stuff work. It's helpful, that video. The student services, this is just a start. The school has well over 100 services that once you pay your tuition, there is just all kinds of things that you can avail yourself to. And these are just a few of them. You check the school's website for more. It'll have a whole section with services, and they'll have services hidden within services. So this is just a kind of start to give you a sense of things that may be relevant to this class or others that you're taking. Like there's Tech Central, where admissions is, where if you have a problem with your technology, you can contact these people. If you have a problem with this class, though, like you click on a link and you get like this 404 error or file not found, definitely send me an email, because I'm the only person that's going to fix that. And so I definitely need to know, and keep in mind, this class will be built out a lot bigger in the future. It'll be a much bigger class. It'll be larger. It'll be extended. And so we're in the first run of rebuilding an entire class, this class. And so there may be links that I miss that you click on it and it does error out. If so, that's fine. I've tried to catch every possible moment of that. But if I miss something, that's okay. Just let me know. As soon as I get the email about it, I'll fix it. But there's services for distance learning students. There's the tutoring center. There's information about the library, the accessibility disability services. If this applies to you, you contact these people. They contact me. We do accommodations. Then there's Title IX services. There's counseling services, and there's many more. This is just the beginning, but these are some that are just in most of your classes if you do an online class. So that is the Getting Started Course Information module or folder, whatever you want to call it. So now we can go to the very last thing, the big thing. This is the biggest section, is this course contents. So let's collapse the folders again. And we can even go back to 0. We can go to overview and just go back to where we started. And so now the question is, how do I find my lecture material? So we go to Course Home. This is how you find it. So how do I find my week 1 lecture material? So I know what I need to be reading and watching. Go to Content. And then you look to the left side of the screen. You don't have to worry about what's in the middle. Just go to the left side. Course Content module. Click on it. And it will expand. And D2L, see, I told you this is the larger one, so we save it till the end. And then we scroll down. We still don't worry about what's showing up on this right-hand side. That can distract you. If you want week 1 material, you just click week 1 tab. If you want week 2, 3, then you can scroll down and just see there's week 4, there's a midterm exam module, there's week 5, 6, 7, and then there is the final exam right there. So this is where all your lecture material is. It's under content and then course contents. So everything to do with the lecture material is content, then course contents. This is how you get to it. And then if you want week 1, which starts in a few days, just click week 1. See, it darkened it, so you know that's what you've selected. And then is when you look in the middle of the screen. Is after you've selected what you want, then you're in week 1. There's your dates. Like none of this will be active when you're watching this video these first 3 days. But by this time, this day, this stuff will be active, so you'll be able to interact with it. It'll also tell you, that this is attendance verification thing, which will have already run out by that time, but you're seeing this now, so it's there. You've got some pages in the textbook. They're voluntary. You can read them if you want to. You don't have to in this first week. There's a timeline document, which is talked about in this lecture video and in this lecture handout. The way it works is every week but 1 week. During week 6, you do not have a lecture video. Unfortunately, the week when I was going to make that, a hurricane came through. And by the time this semester is going through, there's very likely still won't be a lecture video for week 6, but you will have the handout. And what these lecture videos do is give you a sort of top layer talk through of what's going on in the handouts. The handout is what you need to read each week. This is where most of your quiz questions, exam stuff, it's all tied to these handouts. So you'll want to get to these at the beginning of a week and read through them. Now, if you're looking at it and you're like, well, that's quite a few pages, it is, but it's all relevant information. And as I keep refining this class throughout the next few semesters, the handouts will get shorter or they may get longer. But the video is helpful. But you kind of want to look through this handout first, then watch the video, or either you can do it in reverse. You can watch the video and then look at the handout. Whichever way works for you. They're both covering the same stuff, except the video is trying to talk about it at a higher level. Like if you think about this is the trees and this is the forest. So you don't lose the forest for the trees, because sometimes you can get disoriented when you have multiple pages to read. Sometimes you're like, okay, what am I really supposed to be paying attention to? This video will point you in that direction. the lecture video. But they're both lecture material. They're both talking about exactly the same thing. This is just the physical PDF file that you can print out. You can save to your computer. You read it. This is me talking through it at a higher level. The next thing is there's a link to your discussion for week 1. Like I told you, you can get to assignments through the assignments tab, or you can do them inside the weekly module. It works just the same, but in this case, you can see all of it, and without going through assignments. Then there's a link to your week 1 quiz. It's down in the bottom. And then some weeks there's voluntary stuff that if you want to read, watch more, learn more about different parts, say week 1 is all about what is philosophy. Well, this is some sub areas in philosophy. You may be interested in those. It's also a thing about truth, which is of central importance to philosophy. And you'll encounter that in this What is Philosophy video and handout. So this is what we will be doing after this Midnight Saturday, midnight on the 19th. You can go ahead though, that if you want to these days before this starts, you can watch these videos, get ready for week 1. There's nothing that says you can't look at stuff for a week that's upcoming and go ahead and get ready. Go ahead and think about how you want to answer the discussion question. Use the days you have. It's like I said, we're in this sort of limbo period this first week. All that you need to do between the 17th and 19th is just send me an email. But there's nothing that says during these days you can't go ahead and be thinking about week 1. You just won't be able to post to the discussion until this. You won't have access to it until the 19th at midnight, and you won't be able to do the quiz until starting on the 19th through these days. But you can get ready. And you can certainly, watch the lecture material, read through the handout, look at the timeline and any of this other stuff, voluntary, whatever. You can look through it. I have to encourage people to do that. It's an abbreviated semester. There's nothing wrong with getting a little ahead. And then the next week's going to work exactly the same way. Week 2 is going to have the week that it is. All I did was just click on week 2. I just clicked here. And we're still under this course contents module. And we're just clicking on some of the folders that you have week 2. It gives you the kind of topic with Greek mythology and the pre-Socratics. And then you have a video and you have a handout, just like you did in week 1. That's your lecture material marked with my initials, so you can always know what it is. There's also another little video, it's kind of helpful, interesting to watch. The same thing with Keku. This is an interesting thing. Essentially, the idea is what we talk about the pre-Socratics are doing is not that much different than what contemporary theoretical physicists are doing. In many ways, they're doing basically the same thing. It's interesting. This is 2,500 years or 2,700 years ago, and lo and behold, still to this day, people are still asking this, trying to answer the same kind of questions. They just have different answers today than they did in the past. But people have always been people. And that's one thing, that you can get through doing this sort of historical presentation of philosophy, which is the way this class is, that you should never underestimate people that lived 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 or so years ago. The reality is their minds worked. They may not have had access to the technology we do today. I mean, it would be magic to them, sort of the stuff we're able to even do in online class. But that does not mean that they would have been incapable of understanding what we're doing. The human brain and mind is very much the same. These people were extremely smart people. That's why we still read about them today and talk about them today. There's also another, this document here, Schiller, is interesting. It's mentioned in the lecture material. Then there's the discussion for week 2, and it describes things. You have a question, then you have the week 2 quiz, and then you have some voluntary stuff. Anything down here, if it's marked voluntary, it means you don't have to do it. There's no grade associated with watching any of this stuff. But it's just if you want to learn more, you have the opportunity to. And then if we keep looking over on this left-hand side, there's a midterm exam module. What is that? Well, we click on it. It's just this midterm exam module. You've got your unlock dates, your due date for it. At this date, it will become active, and you could click on this and do your midterm. There's no different clicking here than if you were to go up to assignments and go to quizzes and find the link to midterm and click on it. That you can do every assignment. You don't even have to go through the assignments tab except maybe to go to Dropbox. That there's a link to every assignment you have inside each of these weekly modules. So what I would encourage people to do is just always start with the weekly module and just do the stuff in the order that it's in it. That's one of the easiest ways to do the class. So we can reverse this, say that now we've got all these tabs open, say we don't like this, we have all these things. Well, we can always go table of contents, close all the folders, and then if we want to, we can go all the way back to 0 at overview. And now we basically reset back to 0 or where we started. So one final thing before we finish out this video is we need to look at the syllabus. So here's the news feed. It's in the very first news post is the syllabus. So what does that look like? If you click on it, it's going to be this document. It's going to be the syllabus. And it's just a standard syllabus telling you about the class. You've got my name, email, office hours. Office hours are whenever you need them to be. The school requires that I post these. Just send me an email. I answer your email. That was our office hours. If we need to do more than email, sometimes it's more efficient to just talk through it on the phone if you have certain questions. That's fine. Just send me an email. We can schedule a time. We'll talk through it on the phone. Every semester, I talk to people on the phone. We deal with email. It's fine. We'll work through whatever it is. And whenever we're doing email or on the phone, that's our office hours. So I won't necessarily even be sitting at the computer at Wednesdays from 1 to 4 unless someone says they need me to be. I can absolutely be available during those times. But the idea is send me an email. We go from there. Office hours are when you need them to be. That's the way to think about it. The required text, we use some of it. Is it required? Yeah, you have access to it and you have it already, so we will use some pages out of it. That's fine. The course rationale, you can read that for yourself. The description, you can read that. The prerequisites, if you look through this and are like you don't recognize any of them, you don't know if you've done them, just get in touch with your academic advisor. If they need to get in touch with me, they will. We'll work it out. Online and hybrid courses, that's what this is a fully online class. If you don't know what this is, like this distance learning orientation, if you haven't done this or you don't know if you've done it, once again, get in touch with your academic advisor. They'll let you know if you need to do it or not. The additional requirements, there's a student code of conduct, rights and responsibilities. That's just standard for the whole college. It applies to everything. Technical requirements, it is a 100% online course, so you do need, you do need a reliable internet connection or access to one and access to a reliable computer throughout the semester. And you have to have a way to get into D2L to do the stuff and the assignments and watch the videos. The intention, I'm definitely here, committed to doing my best to help you have the best educational experience. The learning outcomes, these are what happens by the end of the semester. You put your work in, I put mine in, and these are just a few of the things you'll be able to do or know about by the end of the semester. You'll know about a whole lot more besides these too. By the time you've completed the class, if you put your effort in. The grading system, standard 9, 10-point scale. How is your grade determined? Well, there's 7 weeks. You have a discussion every week. They're worth 4 final grade points per week. That's how many, if you make 100% on the discussion, you've got a 4. And you start the semester with 0 points, and as you successfully complete assignments, those points just add up until the end of the semester. So if you make a 50 on a discussion, you got a 2. And then, so if you did all 100% on the discussions by the end of the semester and you did none of this other stuff, you'd have a 28 in the class. But you're going to do more than just the discussions. You'll do these quizzes, you'll do the exams, you'll do the essay, and then all those points, that will total to 100%. But then if you do the 2 extra credits on top of it, you'll have an extra 5 that's added to your grade. So if you had a 75, if you did all this and you got 75 points, you do the extra credits, it turns into an 80. So this can change your entire letter grade. It's not a small amount of points that are available. The weekly discussion post, we've already talked about this. You do your initial post around Wednesdays at 7, Thursday, it's fine. But then you just don't want to wait till the end of the week. That's when this due date starts penalizing you. So then you read other people's posts and reply to 3 with helpful feedback. The way you get a grade for discussions, it goes into how that works. That it needs to be thoughtful, which just means you provide an answer to the initial your initial post to the question. You include at least a few reasons, which you'll learn more about what that means as you do week 1. You include some reasons that counts as being thoughtful. And then when you do peer replies, it's thoughtful and respectful. Namely, there's no reason to insult anybody. Just post to people the way that you would want to be posted to, and most times you'll be perfectly fine. Unless what may be okay for you, you've experienced in life, maybe it wouldn't be, so good to just do it to someone else. So just, most people understand. Most people understand how to get along with other people. There's not a set number of sentences or paragraphs that's required. You just answer the question or provide reasons for it in an initial post, and then you provide someone with helpful feedback in a peer reply. If you take 10, 15 sentences to do that, or if you take 5 pages, that's totally fine, whichever way. As long as you meet the parameters of the assignment, it's fine. And also participate in these weekly discussions. That's the fun part. You're getting to interact with each other, and we learn from one another. I participate in them. I don't reply to everybody's post every week, but I do read everybody's post, and I do reply from time to time. Weekly quizzes. They're 10 questions, multiple choice, true, false. You have 50 minutes to do them. And then the only week you don't have one's week 4. The midterm final exam, what are these things? They're just bigger quizzes. That's all they are. Instead of 10 questions, you have 30. And you have an hour and a half to do it. And you will recognize some of these questions because these same kind of questions you've seen in the quizzes are going to show back up on these exams. There will be some questions you have not seen, but you will have seen many of them. So it's not like you'll be going into the midterm totally with no idea what to expect, which is nice. I've had a lot of classes where I had no clue what was coming up. But a midterm is just a larger quiz. You'll be familiar with some of the questions. And then you have an hour and a half to do it. It's for the first half of the semester, weeks 1 through 4. The final exam is through weeks 1 through 5, or 5 through 7. So there's not a cumulative final in this class. It's, we do to the midterm, then it's like you mentally reset and you just focus on weeks 5 through 7 for the final. Then there's these important things, and they are important actually. Everything's submitted through D2L. You don't have to go to campus for anything. Everything's done inside this system we've been talking about in this video. And it's 100% online. You never have to go to campus for anything associated with it, unless you're already on campus or you need to use library computers, things like that. But in principle, you can do this entire class from your house and never leave it. But then you don't want to try to take these quizzes and exams on a cell phone, even if it may be the most convenient thing in the world to try to do that. What happens a lot of times is the page will not advance. If you're taking it on a cell phone and you run into problems with a quiz or an exam, the best thing to do is take it on a real computer. This happens. I mean, it wouldn't be here if it wasn't a common thing. So the idea is just to try to take your quizzes and exams on a normal laptop, desktop, and you won't run into any issues. The reason you'll run into stuff sometimes is the cell phone signal has delays. It all seems instantaneous, but it's not to the receiving end of the computers and the servers. There's delays, and cell signals don't necessarily all work the same way as standard computers and plugged in through Ethernet or to a router that's plugged into Ethernet, or if it's a satellite, whatever it is, that cell phones work a little differently the way they deal with internet. And so there's some delays that confuses the D2L testing software. And it's like D2L people, the people who maintain the system, you can't expect them as fast as cell phone changes happen to be up to date with every single possible operating system that or new change to every operating system. It's enough for them to just try to keep up with Windows and Macintosh and Linux. So cell phones is not the way to go when it comes to trying to do quizzes and exams. Then the last thing is the timers. When you have 50 minutes to do a quiz, that means as soon as you agree to take it, you've got that 50 minutes from that point forward. When you go in and you've seen the very first question, that timer's on the servers. And even if you log out, you go in, you're in there for 1 minute, and you log out and you go back, go off and do something for 3 hours and then come back, that 50 minutes is going to be over and you'll be locked out. And all that it'll let you do is turn the quiz in. So you want to set the time aside and just do the quiz or do the exam in the time you have, because logging out does not stop the timers. That's just the way it's set up. Argumentative essay. This will make more sense once you've done discussions, but it's just a standard argumentative essay structure. You're just expanding upon a discussion post. Once you've made a few discussion posts, come back, read through this. You'll say, "Oh yeah, I see what's going on there." Once you've done once you've done a few discussions, done a few weeks of the class, this will make sense. If it doesn't, just send me an email. I'll be glad to explain it to you. But it's pretty straightforward what it's asking you to do there. And you only do that once. It's one writing assignment. It's due by the end of the semester. There's extra credit we've talked about. Makeup policy. It says that missed discussion posts cannot be made up. Send me an email if you miss a discussion post. It's not easy to make them up, but send me an email, especially if it was some situation beyond your control, something you could do nothing about. If it's an acceptable documented reason, we'll go from there. In terms of quizzes and exams, if you miss a quiz, send me an email. It can be reopened. Midterm exam. Even if you miss the midterm exam, if you got a reason for it, then that can be reopened. The final exam, though, cannot be reopened, because when this class ends, I have like just a day. I mean, it's like it's right on top of it when I have to turn in grades. And I have to do that for all the classes that I teach. I teach quite a few. And so there's just not enough time to make up the final exam. And so what happens is you want to do that final exam. You have a whole week to do these exams and quizzes, and definitely do them during that week. But if it's a missed quiz, we can reopen stuff. Missed midterm, we reopen stuff. We can work with missed discussion posts. The final exam, I'm saying that up front, there's just not enough time. So disruptive, disrespectful behavior, you can read through this. I mean, you just don't reply to people's posts like, "Well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever read." Even if that's true, it could be. I mean, it could happen. Sometimes, you see things and you're like, "Well, that's absurd." That's fine, but you don't have to say it that way. You can say anything you want to say normally. It's how you say it. If you think something is these things, you're just disagreeing with the post. So instead of saying that, just say, "Well, I disagree," and then give the reasons. What of the other person's reasoning or their examples, what didn't work? What seems to be false or mistaken? And walk through it. That's helpful feedback. Because we're not perfect. But there's no reason to, just insult someone. It's not necessary in an academic environment. We're all learning. Perfection is not the expectation. But there is an expectation that people do their own work. This plagiarism, cheating. Plagiarism is that you take something that you did not create, you put your name on it, and you turn it in as if it's yours. That's a form of information theft, and you're going to get a 0 for it if it's substantiated. And it has to be turned in to the administration. It follows you around. This can mess up scholarships. It can mess up everything. It's just not worth it. This is a 101 intro course. Just do your own work. I mean, like I say, perfection is not the expectation. The expectation is you read the material, you've tried to make sense of it, you've asked me any questions you have, and you made your post, you made your feedback, you've done what you did on the quizzes and exams. And in a class like this one, you will do okay as long as you're putting forth the effort. There's no reason to get a 0 or get kicked out of the entire class for doing this. Cheating, same thing. Just do your own work. I mean, it's just wasting your time and everybody else's if you don't. Then there's attendance. Yeah, so technically you're attending 4 times. What does that mean? That means you're doing an initial post of discussion and then you're replying to 3 peers. You could do this all in one login event though. If it's like Wednesday and you make your post, the odds are some 3 or 4 or 5 people may have already made posts. You can read it, make your 3 replies. You're done as far as attendance goes. You don't have to log in 4 times, but you will want to log in at least one more time by the end of the week because your peers may have given you helpful feedback to your post, and you may want to read that and read what other people have posted in the in-between time. But the key to it is as long as you're doing discussions, completing them, you're doing the quizzes, you will be attending. This does matter. The school requires at least 80% of attendance. That means you can't miss over 1.5 weeks of the 7-week course. Otherwise, you'll drop below that 80%. That means that you just didn't do anything for a whole week, and then you don't do anything for a half a week. Typically, it's going to be 2 full weeks that you missed. At that point, this isn't my policy. It's a school's policy, though, so I have to follow it. It has to do with federal law and financial aid and state law, too. That if you miss over 20%, I have to withdraw you. And then, and if you want to be in a class, it's not worth it. So the idea is, the main thing is for this week, just to verify your attendance, you send me an email. It's not a week, it's just these days. And then week 1 starts after these days. But that's how you do attendance for this first few days. The online identity verification, we talked about that. Technical issues, like I've said, I've mentioned this is at least the 3rd time. The class is one that is built brand new. And this semester, that means that there can be sometimes a link or something that fails. If that happens, let me know. I'll fix it. Technical issues will not be an issue. Now, if it's something like your computer won't talk to the school servers or something, we may have to talk to technical support about that. But in terms of any link that if it were to happen or something like that fails in the class, just send me an email. I'll fix it. The student resources, that's the same as like student services. It's just some phone numbers, more information. You can read through that. But we have reached the end of this video. I hope it's been helpful, and I look forward to, I'll receive your emails these first few days. I'll reply so you know I received it. Your attendance will be verified. After that, you don't ever have to send me those kind of emails anymore. You just do the assignments. You start when week 1 does in a few days, and I'll interact with people through discussions and email. Until then,